Welcome back to the Sports Card Nation podcast, episode 4. And this is a jam-packed episode, folks. Our first ever interview with Clay Plaugher from Instagram, known as Clay Cards. We're going to discuss he's famous for his group PSA submissions. He cleans them, sends them in, gets great grades, and he's got quite the rep. We're going to talk about how he got started in cards, how he got started in the group submissions, and what he thinks versus the whole PSA versus Beckett graded debate. Pretty safe to say he's a PSA guy, but he's going to tell you why and how that all came about. This is definitely going to be a heavy sports laden show today. A lot of trades in Major League Baseball we're going to discuss, including one by my favorite team, the New York Mets. That might surprise you. I'm not a huge fan of, and I'll tell you why. There's some other trades as well we'll discuss. The BCS Final Four playoff is set. I'll tell you how I see that going. Who has an argument that they were left out? Who's holding up the trophy when all the dust settles? And we'll talk about Urban Meyer stepping down in Ohio State. Is that the end of Urban, or is just this a break? I'll tell you what my thoughts are and what I think he's going to do. And we're going to talk about some cards as well. We're going to talk about a lot of news with the show. We're going to announce some giveaways tonight. We're also going to talk about our website is now live and fully functional. And we'll talk about some sponsorship opportunities. If you want to be a partner of the show, we'd love to have you. So like I said, a jam-packed show. We try to keep these between 50, 60 minutes, and that's what I think we'll run tonight. I think that's a good time frame to fill with information, but not be too long and not to be short. So we're glad you're here. Thanks for being here, and we'll get the show started. All right, Sports Card Nation, time to talk about, well, it's right in the name, sports cards. Let's right off the bat get the upcoming releases taken care of. Everything I'm about to tell you that's going to be released is all scheduled to be released on December 12th. December 12th, starting with 2018 Panini Elite Extra Edition Baseball. Also, 2018 Panini Playbook Football. 2018 Topps Star Wars Galaxy. 2018 Topps Star Wars Stellar Signatures. And 2018 Rittenhouse Star Trek Enterprise Archives Series 1. Optic Football, first off the line, was released or orderable today, shipping soon. Also, the Obsidian Football is out. I've seen it, not in person yet, although I do plan on opening some. But that stuff really looks sharp, and it looks like in the early stages here, a lot of hits are coming out of that as well. So that's a football product that looks pretty nice. I don't know if you call it high, it's sort of high end, that mid-tier stuff. But it looks like a nice product. It's something I plan on opening. The other thing making the rounds on the sports card internet, and I got to be honest with you, I've been, if you've heard the show from its onset, you realize I've been involved with cards since 1979 as a 7-year-old boy. And we do basketball, not as much as baseball and football, but back in the 90s I actually did more basketball than I do now. I enjoyed the sport more then than I do now. And so Hoops was a big release back in the, first came out in 89, but early 90s. And I opened quite a bit, had quite a bit. And there's a card in the 1990 Hoops release that's becoming kind of famous, or is kind of famous, not for the player that's on the card, but for who's pictured in the background watching the game in the front row. And I don't know how many of these cards I've had or owned or sold or maybe still in one of my monster boxes in my basement, but it's the Mark Jackson 90 Hoops card. And if you look to the upper left where you see people sitting courtside, you'll see a famous pair of brothers, okay? And it's not the Jackson brothers, it's the Menendez brothers, famous California brothers, not famous for anything good, famous for allegedly murdering their parents. So they're sitting courtside watching this basketball game, and got caught on the card. I don't want to say caught, but their photo is on the card, Mark Jackson card. So I have to check it out as far as what the values are going for. I was reading some of them are going for $5-10 just because of this fact, not because of Mark Jackson being on it, but the fact that the Menendez brothers are appearing on the card. And, as many times as I've probably seen that card or had that card in my hand, that one got right by me. I never saw it. And here we are, 2018, 28 years later after the release. And that's honestly the first time I heard about this. Maybe I'm a little late to the party, so be it. But there's a little interesting little card history there for you as well. So Christmas is coming up. We hope you get every card or product you ask for, and we wish you a Merry Christmas. All right, here's the part of the show where we're going to give out all our social media links, our email, our website. That way you can check us out, or if you need to get a hold of us, you can do it. We're on Instagram at Sports Card Nation Podcast, all one big word, at Sports Card Nation Podcast. We're on Twitter, and our Twitter handle is at Sports Card Natty 1. That's SportsCardNati 1. That's Twitter. We're on Facebook. If you search Sports Card Nation Podcast, and that's 4 words, Sports Card Nation Podcast, you can get a hold of us. We're on iTunes. If you just search Sports Card Nation Podcast, we'll come up, and all our episodes will pop up as well. We'd love for you to subscribe so you don't miss any episodes. And our website is now live as well. And the address there is sportscardnationpc.wixsite.com/my site. That's sportscardnationpc, all one word, .wixsite, WIXSITE.com/my site. Site is SITE. So check our website out. It's a work in progress, but we're proud of everything we're doing, and we hope you check us out. Thank you. All right, joining us now on the Sports Card Nation podcast is our first ever guest, believe it or not. He goes by the name of Clay Plaugher, also known as Clay Cards on Instagram, which is where I know him from. And to give you a little background before I bring him on, how I know him is, as I've said on previous shows, I do submit for cards for grading. PSA, Beckett is the two I use, and when I was getting ready, I had some cards built up to do another submission. I was always seeing these posts, that Clay's Cards, submit PSA. I've seen him, and he just came, a lot of positive posts, came highly recommended, and I said, you know what? That many people saying that many positive things, that's just not by coincidence. So, I'm on my second submission with him. He does a good job. He's on submission number 9 as far as since he's been doing it. And the price level, you can't be beat. He has two of them, but I do the $10 a card, 45 days. Clay will look at them for you, kind of tell you maybe I wouldn't send that in, or these are fine to send in. Cleans them, does all the legwork and the dirty work that if you've ever submitted yourself that you're not real fond of. And he takes the legwork out for you, and for the price, it can't be beat. So when I was looking for someone to bring on to do that first interview, he's one of the first guys, honestly, I thought of. So here we are. I'm going to bring him on. Clay, welcome.
Hey, John. Thanks for having me on. Appreciate the kind words.
Well, you're welcome, but they're the truth. So no need to thank me. So first thing I'm going to ask you, which is probably the typical hobby question, is just give the listeners a little background. How'd you get into cards in the first place?
Well, I've been collecting since I was young. I had a cousin who was big into collecting, an older cousin, big Reds fan, so we'd watch Reds games and look at cards, and that kind of got me hooked, and I've pretty much been collecting ever since. Took a little break, high school, college for a little while, but kind of kept at it, and it's gotten me here, so.
Yep. It's funny when people, it seems like the common thing, like high school, college, people kind of like put cards on kind of hiatus, and it's always the thing is the opposite sex,
Yeah, other things on the mind at that point.
So I hear you. I think a lot of people share that common thread. So do you collect anybody specific?
Yeah, I collect a couple. My biggest one is Derek Carr, of course. I collect a lot of his stuff. It's gotten cheap recently, so I've been collecting even more.
Yeah.
I also do a couple local guys from my hometown. Dakota Mathias played at Purdue, so I've been picking up some of his contenders autos. And collected a couple Bowling Green guys. That's where I graduated from. So stick to those pretty much.
Yep, very good, very good. So the last episode, I'm assuming you heard it. I kind of gave some of my thoughts about the whole PSA versus Beckett debate. I've said on that I've used both. It's really the only two that I actually recognize when it comes to the selling or buying. And not just because of you, but I've really, leaned towards, I think PSA's kind of taken that lead in that race, if you will. And I just want to know, as someone who's doing these PSA submissions, I obviously know what your answer is going to be, but kind of why, for you, you feel that way.
Yeah, so I actually started off with a PSA. My first PSA submission was actually through a shop here in the hometown at the mall that has since closed. Everything went smooth with that. I ended up getting some more cards I wanted to submit after they had left. So I actually went through somebody else on Instagram that did BCS submissions. So my first two subs were with both of those two companies. BCS was fine. I got some good grades back from them. I liked the slabs. I liked the subgrades. But the price point I did not like. So I think it ended up being somewhere in the $25 range per card for that submission. And I don't, especially when BJS had that shutdown here in the last 6 or 8 months. Tell me what date we're looking at, but with the was it 25-day or 15-day submissions?
Yeah,
that kind of signaled an opportunity to me.
Yeah,
I had done PSA submissions before that, group submissions, but I saw the need for people to be able to submit things at a reasonable price, and price point. I like the people there. It's not difficult to call in and get somebody to talk to if you have questions.
Yeah, that's a lost art in customer service.
Oh yeah, and it's surprising to me, honestly, but I can call into PSA most days and get somebody on the phone within 5 minutes and they answer the questions and I'm off. It's nice, and obviously the price point. That's kind of the big thing. You get the bulk submission. You like you've mentioned, $10 a card. That's tough to beat.
Yeah, no doubt. Like you mentioned that Beckett and there are different price levels for every grading company, but when you're paying $25 a card, if that's what you're doing, then you have to be real selective, obviously, to what you're sending in. Even not even so much what the card may grade, but what the card is itself, because the price exceeds maybe even having the card graded in the first place.
Yeah, and I for one absolutely love just submitting, Prism rookies, optic rookies, just stuff that you wouldn't want to pay $25 to have in case, like you said. But this year I'll send a ton of football and basketball Prism just base rookies. It's
at $10, it takes the guesswork really out of it, which is nice. So I know, I submit with you now, obviously, with the PSA submissions, but when I used to do it myself, whether it be Beckett or PSA, I've done, both of them individually as well. When I first started, I made the rookie mistake. This will tell you how old I am. I submitted kind of when grading was pretty brand new. Now most people think it's been around, since the Flintstones, but but that'll age me. But actually, full disclosure, when it first came out, I was kind of curmudgeon with it. At the time, I had my store, and people were telling me about it. I started looking into it, and I said, man, that's kind of a money grab. You send your card to them, they charge you. They put it in a case, and they tell you what condition it's in, and I can look myself, and anyone who wants to buy a card I can hand it over to them. They can examine it. I thought it was kind of, I remember saying, I was wrong, but I remember saying at the time, this is a fad. It'll never last. It'll go away. And here we are talking about it here, and
it certainly made a big impact on the hobby.
Yeah, and I'll admit when I'm wrong. I did a 180. Obviously now, a good percentage of my inventory is graded. So I'm not always right. Obviously, I think some more. I'm married too, so I know that anyway. So, but. So yeah, it's but the mistake I made, Clay, when I first started doing submissions on my own was I kind of, you're always too nice on your own stuff. So one of the mistakes I made was I said, something was, you could see a little something, and I just like, what, that's not a big deal. If that's the only thing wrong with it, I'm still going to send it in. Not realizing that whether it's the only thing wrong with it, it's still going to affect that overall grade. So early in the process, I got accustomed to pulling a lot of 8s, 8.5s, occasional 9, and I learned probably. I wish I learned a little faster than I did. That you have to be a little more self-critical of the stuff I'm sending in, and even now submitting through you, I'll start off maybe with a stack of 80 or 100 cards, let's say, and doing my own pre-inspection before it heads to Ohio with my LED light and a loop and a magnifying glass and anything else. So that 80 to 100 gets down to kind of like 30, 40, let's say, And there's some that are kind of borderline. Some of those I probably send to you and say, I'll let Clay kind of make the final call. On this one, it's kind of on the bubble, so to speak. So, and I want to point out that to anyone listening, you've done it. You've done a ton of these. I mean, what's been your largest submission? If I put you on the spot, how many cards at once?
Yeah. So this is submission number 9. I believe it was submission number 6. We had over 600 cards, which was a lot of cleaning, but we got it done, and it was exciting to see that many come back in that giant box.
Yeah, it's funny you meant 600 cards. When I did submit on my own, and I was telling you I'd send 20, 30, 40 cards, that was a task. I can't imagine, 600. That's crazy.
It's a couple afternoons in front of the TV watching some football and cleaning some cards.
Yeah, I hear you. But that's all. That's awesome that you provide that service. I know I'm thankful for it. Again, I kind of mentioned what I do with kind of that pre-inspection and being, self-critical with what you submit is, there's sometimes you're looking at a card, or I'm looking at a card, I'm like, man, I really want to get this graded, and then I look at it, I'm like, but I know that's gonna be, under a 9, and it's sometimes a little frustrating. Any tips to anyone listening, whether they're submitting on their own or through you, that can help them out or make even your life a little bit easier if they go through you?
Oh, absolutely, and it's always tougher when it's your own cards. You want what you're doing to be right, and luckily for me, your cards aren't my cards, so I can be a little tougher on them.
And
I think I've even rejected a few of yours before.
You did. I appreciate. I'd rather you do that, than just say, and then it comes back to like an 8 or 8.5 even, or
Yeah, it happens. Before you're sending them to me or before you're sending them in, one of the first things I would do is invest in a light. The lights are $20-$30, and they let you see a lot more of surface issues, especially. You get under that light, you can see scratches, indents, all that tiny things that you have to see under the right light to really get a good look at. So that's one of the first things. Another thing would be definitely at least look at your cards. Some people don't even look; they just say, "Yeah, this would, increase the value as a graded 10 or as a 9." Look at them first. I mean, some of them don't belong here. They don't belong in my hands. So take a look at them for sure. Another thing is look at the back of them. Some people absolutely do not look at the back of their cards. The back's graded too. If there's indents or scratches on the back, it might not be as harshly graded as the front, but it's still looked at.
You make a great point with the surface grades. That was another mistake I made early on. Is when I was submitting on my own, is you do the old standby stuff. Oh, the corners look sharp, no creases, it's good to go. And yet you neglect to really look at that surface where there may be a scratch, fingerprints, an indent, a pot mark, you name it. And you get fooled because you see sharp corners and no creases, and you think that's it. And it's that other thing that kind of you overlook that they're not going to.
They don't miss a lot. No. I can attest to that. They do not miss much. They see things I don't. But one of the things that I think everybody needs to hear about grading is that it's all subjective. I mean, as much as we can look at a card and say, hey, this looks, perfect in my eyes, in somebody else's eyes it might not. So it is all subjective. We all take good looks at them, but it doesn't always work out the way we hope.
I can even tell you, even when I kind of honed my skill a little bit more and learned from my prior mistakes, I'm sure we could all, anyone that submitted could say that there's stuff I've submitted where I was sure, that was a 9.5, even a 10, and it doesn't come back as such, and you scratch your head. But, like you said, no two graders are the same. Each one has their own eye to it. So it is completely subjective. And you know what? That's part of the process, so you can't really complain about that.
Absolutely.
So I'm going to ask you the one question that's on my mind is, with getting that many submissions, 600 just on submission 6 alone, as you said, so you're well over 4 figures in total. What's been the weirdest card that, again, you don't have to mention who did it, who sent it, but what's kind of the oddest card you might have gotten in a submission?
Yes. A couple come to mind. We've done some Pokemon cards. Those are, obviously, those have the rounded corners, so those are a little interesting to grade and see. And especially to see what the prices on some of those Pokemon cards are. I wish I would have kept mine when I was younger.
I'm too old. I was too old to even get into them. So that's, again, I'm dating myself.
Yeah, it's a little different than ball cards though, because you can actually play games and stuff with those Pokemon cards. But they're interesting. We had obviously some older, some vintage. We've even had some T206s, from the 1909, 1911. Those are cool to see in person. Not exactly an oddball, but really neat. We also had a couple round cards. They looked like they were perforated edges. Kind of had a baseball in the background. Ken Griffey Jr. was one. Just an oddball card. It was interesting. It was like a 1992, if I recall right. It was just an interesting card. But I think the Pokemon was probably one of the strangest. It came back okay.
Yeah, I was gonna say with the rounded corners, I gotta think the corner grades pretty much have to be pretty good. It's the other stuff. I think.
I had to do a little research on what I was looking at on those to try to figure out, hey, people who have graded Pokemon, what do you look for? And they've said check the edges. I mean, corners are typically good, and the surface is kind of more of a Bowman paper kind of surface. They're not a chrome finish. So
it's funny.
The edges was the big one.
It's funny you mentioned the Pokemon and the rounded cards. When you think about it, it's surprising that one of the baseball card companies, obviously there's really just the two main ones now with Panini and Topps. I know they have some insert sets. I know Topps did those old play ball, like bringing those back, and those around the court. I'm surprised no one has really done like a full-fledged, with every card like of the base set has that rounded sort of corners.
Yeah, that would be an interesting set there. I do know what you're talking about with the play ball. We've seen a couple of those. Those come back pretty well as well. So maybe they just need to move all around the corners.
That's right. I'm surprised no one. I'm sure there's reasons for it, but maybe the grading companies pay a stipend to Topps and Panini not to make them because they know that. So, I want to thank you again for taking time out of your day. Everyone out there listening, when it comes to PSA grading, the price can't be beat. All you got to do is you don't even have to look that hard. Go on Instagram. You'll see all the posts. Clay does a wonderful job with it. I'm speaking from experience, so I'm not just plugging them blindly. So I'm going to turn the floor over to you, Clay, to kind of close out the show. Final word. Talk about what you got going on now. If you want to drop how someone can get a hold of you. If they want to get in on submission 9, what they have to do and whatnot. So the floor is yours.
All right, submission 9 is going on now. Cards are due December 29th. You can get a hold of me on Instagram at ClayCards. You can email me at ClayCards101 PSAGrading.com. Or you can even catch me on Facebook, Clay Plaugher. Like you mentioned, cards are $10 a card. If you have any other questions, get a hold of me. I'm not too difficult to deal with. Happy to answer questions. Yeah, we'll keep doing subs. So if you miss out on 9, hit me up another time.
We'll catch you on 10.
Catch me on 10, absolutely.
All right. Once again, Clay, thanks for coming on. We'll have you back on. I'm sure this won't be the only time, that we have you on. So we'll have you on again. I appreciate you spending some time with us tonight.
Absolutely, and I think what you're doing here, John, is great. I think the podcast is a great idea, and I think you're doing a great job with it. I've listened to all of them so far, and every single episode's been an improvement, so I'm excited to see where it goes.
I appreciate, number one, I appreciate you saying that. I appreciate you listening as well as anyone else. It's one of those things, it's like riding a bike. The more you do it, you hopefully get better at it. So I'm sure 5 might be better than 4, and 6 might be better than 5, and we'll go from there. So, I appreciate you saying that.
Absolutely.
All right, Clay. Thank you.
Yep, thanks, John.
All right, you're welcome.
We'd like to take this opportunity to thank you for listening to the podcast. Without you, there's no us, and we know that better than anyone, and we appreciate you listening to the show. We'd also like to take this moment to offer you a special opportunity to anyone out there who would like to kind of partner with us to either promote their business or events or things they're doing. Reach out to us via email at sportscardnationpc@gmail.com, sportscardnationpc@gmail.com, or give us a call, area code 315-491-0239. That's also a cell line, so you can text the show as well. If you want to run an ad during the show, we're going to have those available. We can discuss, all the terms and how we could do that and work with you. And also our website is now live and fully functional, and we're selling banner ads on that as well. $7 a month, can't beat that price. Super low price. $7 a month gets you a banner ad of your business or event with a link to your website or page. Social media page or website. We can link it back to you, one click, and they go from our website to your site. Or $4 a month just for a banner ad with no link. But for $3 more, you might as well get that link that redirects them to your site. So we hope this is something you may be interested in. Contact us. I think it's something that can be mutually beneficial for both parties. So we hope to hear from you. Thanks again. All right, it's the sports segment of Sports Card Nation podcast, and we're going to start off in the world of baseball. A few trades have went down as of recent this week. We'll start out with the most recent one, the one that sends Diamondback slugger Paul Goldschmidt east or mid-east to the St. Louis Cardinals. In return, the Diamondbacks are getting Luke Weaver, Carson Kelly, and another minor leaguer. I think this is a trade beneficial to both teams. I'm really a big fan of Luke Weaver. I think when he's healthy, he's an up-and-coming pitcher that I like long-term. Carson Kelly, a touted catcher prospect, and catching prospects are few and far between. So we'll see how he pans out. He's going to get a new opportunity in Phoenix to make an impact there. And it's a trade, I think, pretty fair. I think both teams are going to benefit. I'm honestly surprised that the Diamondbacks and Goldschmidt parted ways. I kind of saw him sort of like a Cal Ripken, a guy that was going kind of the face of the franchise, the guy that was going to kind of play out his career all in one place, maybe even become a coach after his career's done. but times are changing. That sort of stuff doesn't happen as much as it used to in today's modern day of baseball. So Goldschmidt is out. Luke Weaver and Carson Kelly are in, and we'll see how these teams benefit from this deal. I think both teams kind of come out in the positive end. I think it's one of those fair trades that you can't argue with either way. The other trade that happened was with the Phillies and the Seattle Mariners. The Seattle made a couple trades, including one with my Mets we're going to talk about here shortly as well. But first, the Phillies-Mariners trade. The Phillies sent J.P. Crawford and Carlos Santana to Seattle. Now, J.P. Crawford seems like he's been a rookie, a hot prospect for 3-4 years. It's not really been that long. But right up until this point, he hasn't really panned out. He's struggled on the major league level, batting under 200 for the most part, not showing a lot of the pop he showed at the minor league levels. And it appears like the Phillies probably got tired of waiting. Maybe the change of scenery going to Seattle will do him some good. He should compete or win that starting spot. It's his to lose. And coming back to the Phillies way is a guy that plays that position that's a little more proven already. So the Phillies don't have to wonder what kind of production they're going to get from the shortstop position as they get Gene Segura in return. So Segura is a lankier guy, but he's got some pop. He's kind of what J.P. Crawford was compared to when people were making comparisons. They said he kind of reminds scouts of Segura. So I guess the Phillies figured he wasn't panning out, and if we can trade him and get Segura, why not do it? They had to give up Carlos Santana as well to do it, but it looks like they got their shortstop that's going to give them some production from that position. Makes you wonder if they're the rumor is maybe Bryce Harper winds up there too. But the other thing that trade does that's not getting necessarily talked about is it allows Scott Kingery to go back to his normal position, at third base. I know they're working him in the outfield too, but shortstop, where he did play a little bit last year, was not his normal position. And there's many who believe that stress and that trying to learn a new position, that pressure, affected him in the batter's box. And he didn't have a great year in the card world. We know his stuff early on when he got that new deal, which was astronomical for someone who really hasn't proven himself yet, just a highly regarded prospect. He kind of struggled out the gate, and he never really, made up ground. So he had kind of a disappointing year, especially when you look at that contract. And this trade allows him to slide back over to a position he's accustomed to. And the Phillies are hoping and assuming it's going to have a positive impact at the plate. So they're anticipating a bounce back year from Scott Kingery. He's a guy I do like. I think he's a very good player. It'll be interesting to see if this trade and his going back to his natural position gets him back on track for, even though I'm a Mets fan, for his sake, I hope it does. And speaking of the Mets, that's my team. We didn't have a great year as Met fans. We've kind of become accustomed to that. Our highlight of our year being a Mets fan was DeGrom winning the Cy Young with the least amount of wins. Yet he had one of the most statistical best seasons a pitcher's ever had, with a below 2 ERA. I read a stat where if the Mets would have scored 3 runs or more in his starts, he would have been something like 25-1. That's how good he was. Lights out. They just didn't score for him. Well, the Mets are trying to fix that. And the trade they've made thus far is a step in that direction. They're getting Robinson Cano. Yes, PED Robinson Cano, but he served his suspension. Was productive in the half season, 80 games he played in Seattle. He's not a spring chicken. He's getting up there in age, but he's still got some years left. And he's coming over back to New York, except not now with the Yankees, but across town in Queens, he's going to be playing for the Mets at second base. I'm not a huge Cano fan, but I'm willing to give him a chance. But the real gem of that trade is what a lot of people don't see or think Cano is, but it's Edwin Diaz. Edwin Diaz, the 57 save, under 2 ERA, led the major leagues in saves. Very young. The Mets can still control him for a few years. So he's really the key to the deal. The Mariners also sent $20 million. And going to Seattle, the first two guys I'm going to name, I'm not going to miss, to tell you the truth. They were overpaid and didn't produce, and that's Jay Bruce and Anthony Swarzak. Both, they cleared their money off the books. They're also getting that $20 million back in return for Seattle to offset some of Cano's salary. So Cano, at least early on with his contract, is very affordable for what production he might give you. And now they got a true closer that at least on paper is lights out. Now he's going to a different league, so we'll see how that translates. But he was virtually unhittable as a closer. And you know, think about it, 57 saves on a team that didn't win a ton of games. That's pretty impressive. So I actually like him more than the Cano piece. I like that we got rid of Bruce and Swarzak, as that clears that money off the table. But they also sent 2 more guys over to Seattle, and these are guys I may miss more than Bruce and Swarzak. One especially, I'll save him for last. They gave up Justin Dunn, a pitching prospect. 2 years ago had a rough year, and he kind of had a bounce back year last year. You know, kind of slated to make the major leagues in a couple years, and the Mets kind of had high hopes for him, and you know, but to get that trade done, they had to give him up. The other guy, the other prospect trading, is their first round pick from this year, and that's Jared Kelenic, an outfielder. And he's the guy, when I heard this trade being rumored, and I heard his name come up a few times, I you know, my son's a Met fan, and we had discussions about it, and I was telling him, man, I hope, you know, Kalenic's not in this deal. But sure enough, he's going. And this is what makes me kind of not like the deal. You're getting Diaz, but you're getting kind of a long in the tooth Cano coming off a PED suspension, and you're giving up your number one pick. Now, I know prospects is nothing guaranteed. Kalanick may be a bust, you know, many years later. He may not be what, you know, the scouts think. That's, you know, like my son likes to trade. He said, well, you know, Dad, you're getting guaranteed production for a guy you don't know what you're getting. You're getting the safer bet. You know, while he's not wrong, I think the potential with Kalanick is really up there. And so I'm sorry to see him go. He was the one piece I was hoping we could make deals without giving him up. But he's on his way to the Northwest. He's probably a couple years away from being in the bigs, but many project him to be an outfielder with some pop and high average. So we'll see if the Mets, you know, I think this is one of the trades that's going to take a few years before we determine who ultimately got the better of the deal. I'm not feeling great about it. My son likes it. One of us is right. One of us is wrong. We'll find that out, I guess, in a couple years. We'll see. The other news in the sports world, the BCS is set. You got Alabama at 1, Clemson at 2, Notre Dame at 3, and Oklahoma at 4. So it's going to be Alabama versus Oklahoma. A lot of people giving Oklahoma a really good swinger's chance to pull off what on paper would be an upset. You got Clemson and Notre Dame. And you got a couple teams that probably feel they got snubbed, with the number 1 team being the Georgia Bulldogs. They just played Alabama. They basically blew the game. They had a 14-point lead at one point, and they blew a second-half lead and allowed that. Even with Tua going down, Tua Tagovailoa, they couldn't hold on, and Alabama beat them by a score, 35-28. So a lot of people are pointing to that game as saying Georgia should have been in just as a team capable of beating the best team in the nation. The other team that might have a gripe is the Ohio State Buckeyes. They handled their business versus Michigan, destroying them. They moved up to 6th, and they handled business in their conference championship against Northwestern, a very good team coached by one of my favorite coaches in Pat Fitzgerald. It's a game I thought Northwestern, if you listened to last week's show, I actually took them as one of my best bets to cover the spread. They didn't, so I'm a little surprised there. But so Ohio State right now is rolling, and they actually stayed at 6. Now you got also at 7 or 8, I can't remember which one, Central Florida. Their quarterback, Mackenzie Milton, goes down with a horrific injury. Their backup quarterback doesn't miss a beat, and they remain undefeated. And they make the argument, being undefeated, they should be in that top 4 with a chance to play for the national championship. And they made the same argument last year going undefeated. And when they went undefeated and won their bowl game as well, they actually claimed a national championship. They have banners, they have rings, and I have a feeling they're probably going to do the same thing again if they win their bowl game against LSU. Now, I'm not going to lie to you. I think UCF's a little bit kind of conceited, cocky, making up their own championships. So I'm going to be rooting for LSU that day. So maybe we can end this week schedule, go 12-0, we're the champs stuff that I think is getting kind of old. So, UCF, you got to play somebody. I know some of it's not your fault. You have to play the teams in your conference. You beat them all, I get it. But that conference, top to bottom, does not compare to a Power 5. So you can claim your mock championship, order rings from Ep.4, do what you got to do. But to me, one of those 4 teams, whoever comes out, is going to be that national champ. You can, like I said, you can order the banner, your rings, but that national championship's going to be held up by either Alabama, Clemson, Notre Dame, or Oklahoma. And that's just the way it is. And speaking of that, the Alabama-Oklahoma game should be exciting. I think it'll be higher scoring than most will probably predict. I just don't see, full disclosure, I don't see anybody beating Alabama. I like to see, I'm kind of tired of the Nick Saban Alabama show, so I'm rooting for them not to win. Oklahoma has a fighter's chance, but I wouldn't put money on it. So I see Alabama winning a shootout there, potentially, and the Clemson-Notre Dame game. I don't have a rooting interest necessarily either way, but I do think Clemson, it just has too much speed, too much firepower. I don't think Notre Dame can score enough points to keep up with Clemson. So I see Clemson winning that game. So in my mind, you see a Clemson-Alabama for the national championship. That could be a good game. But now you got a freshman quarterback in Trevor Lawrence versus that Alabama defense and We'll see if Tua's back. But even Jalen Hurts is a player. So can basically a rookie college quarterback with the hot lamps of a national championship go in against an Alabama defense and get it done? I like Lawrence. I think he's a very good player, probably a number one pick in the NFL here in a couple years. But is he ready for that spotlight? I don't know. The moment might be too big. So I'm going to put my money, if I was putting money on this, on Alabama, with me rooting against them. I don't want them to, but you know what they tell you, bet with your head, not with your heart. So I don't want Alabama to win. I just feel like they're going to. And while we're still on college, let's talk about a college coach, a legendary college coach, stepping down. Urban Meyer is calling it a career in Ohio State after the bowl game. Ryan O'Day will take over. Couple thoughts on that. First, I want to talk about Ryan O'Day. I guess Ohio State must really like him. They're giving him the job. They're not opening it up to outside candidates, so they're keeping the job in house with Coach O'Day. So they must be really sold on him. He is highly regarded, so I guess they feel like, why risk? You got a guy familiar with the program. Let's keep him here. So that's what they're doing there. And Urban Meyer, it's the timing kind of smells like him, the AD, maybe the administration, with the controversy earlier this year with the spousal abuse and the supposedly not reporting it and lying about it. It just appears like that administration and Urban aren't really on the same page or not on good footing. And I know he's saying it's health, some of it's health issue related. I'm sure that it is. We've heard that before, even some of these allegations, but the timing just seems kind of odd, and he's stepping down at Ohio State. So to me, the debate becomes, is that the career of Urban Meyer? And I just don't see it. This is a guy who's been a coach since I can remember. I remember back in his Florida. I remember him back when he was in Utah and Florida. And this guy that's what he does. I just don't see him going to ESPN and being an analyst. Well, maybe he will for a year. I just don't see him doing that long term. I see him. He's gonna pop up somewhere else, a big school. They're gonna pay him. He's gonna get the itch. He's gonna be back. Where that might be, time will tell. But I don't think we've seen the last of Urban Meyer. All right, we got some giveaways announcements to make. First off, we're giving away currently a Jason Tatum 2007-18 Select Prisms Scope Parallel Gold Label BGS 9.5. It's got 9.5 centering corner surface, 9 edges. So it's a gold label, Jason Tatum Prism Scope Parallel Rookie, valued anywhere between $60 to $100, depending on eBay completed listings, and we know how that goes. This card is going to be given to someone absolutely free. You can get up to 4 entries. Here's how you do it. Follow the show on Instagram. Follow the show on Twitter. Those are an entry each. And if you go on Instagram and do a follow, shout out, follow post to our Instagram page, we'll give you 2 more entries. So one person can have up to 4 entries. I don't really have a deadline date on when I'll stop it. It'll just be kind of, when it kind of peters out. And we'll be giving that away to someone absolutely free. So get your 4 potential entries and win that Tatum rookie. And what we're also going to do, and we're going to do it starting in episode 5, next episode, we're going to give away a card each podcast. And what we'll do is we'll announce what that card or cards are. There'll be some weeks where it'll be a collection of 3 or 4 cards that make kind of a lot, but it'll be free shipping. Winner gets it shipped. They don't have to pay for shipping, and we'll announce it that week leading up to the show. And what we'll do is this: during the show, at some point, I'll say the key word is, and everyone has to either private message or email the keyword. Everyone that enters it and sends it to us, we'll enter them and do a random and pick one person that gets that correct, get their contact info, and mail them that week's prize. And we really plan on doing that every week, kind of the give back. I'm trying to think, I know shows do giveaways, but I don't know of any that does them every week, and we want to do them every week. So something to look forward to the rest of the way going forward. Some exciting stuff. We hope you stay on the ride with us. All right, that closes our show. That's the end of episode 4. We hope you enjoyed it. We want to thank Clay Plaugher for taking time out of his schedule to share his insight and thoughts about grading and what he does. I highly recommend him. Like I said during the interview, I would definitely, if you're interested in getting your cards graded through PSA, and right now they're the leader in the clubhouse, as I said during the interview and on the podcast before. They've really stepped their game up where other grading companies kind of took a step back. And Clay's really the guy, the point man there on those group submissions. $10, 45 days, and he cleans them for you, cracks them if need be, and then sends them in. And he does a bang up job with that. So I want, again, thank him for coming on and spending some time with him. And like I said during the interview, we'll have him back periodically to find out what's going on in the world of PSA and with his submissions. We want to give you a sneak peek to next week's show. We tentatively got scheduled Deegs Sports Vault. And the one thing I love what Deegs Sports Vault's doing, they're a give back company. They do a school supply drive, and right now, as we speak, they're doing a Christmas toy drive, and I just love stories like that. I'm someone who's involved with charities on a personal level. Make-A-Wish is a big one of mine. I have donated cards to Children's Hospital for kids to enjoy. It's something I believe in. We're when you're very blessed with things, you should kind of give back. It's not all about dollar signs and me. And Deegs Sports Vault is that company, that guy, and I've kind of seen him from afar doing this, and I definitely want him to come on the show, talk about that, promote that, and get the word out. He's does a pretty good job without the show, but I think I want to acknowledge that and highlight one of the aims of the show, folks, in the sports card hobby. We hear a lot of the bad things, the scammers and the people betting and not paying bets, not sending their end of a trade, not holding their end up of a purchase. Every day you turn on social media and it's just, you look left, you look right, and there's another story about someone not being a good person. And that's always going to be the case. We're never. It's not a utopia. Well, when you hear stories about people providing a service and giving back to the card community and the community in general, not just the card community, but in Deegs Sports Vault's case, giving back to kids who need school supplies, maybe not as fortunate kids who aren't going to have the Christmas that a kid should have. And for them to step up and head things like that, it's rare. It's really rare. It's refreshing to see, and I want to talk to them about it. So tentatively, we have them scheduled to come on for episode 5. So I look forward to that. I hope you do too. Once again, we thank you for listening to the show, and we'll see you in a week.